WION Business Masters, a brand new business talk show where we bring forth the stories of business leaders and how they have placed India at the top of the world's business ranks. We will uncover the trends, the tactics, and dive into the minds of the industry's most influential leaders. And joining us today is a distinguished marketing maestro with over 2 decades of remarkable achievements and a career spanning globally renowned brands. Before I introduce our guest, let me give you another hint. He has pioneered viral ad campaigns such as the Cricket World Cup 2015 Mauka Mauka and the Pro Kabaddi League Le Panga. Well, he now serves as the Chief Marketing Officer for the automotive giant Tata Motors commercial vehicles business. We have with us Mr. Shubhranshu Singh. Welcome to WION Business Masters.
Thank you, Rahisha. Wonderful to be here.
Likewise, Mr. Singh. Now, with an illustrious career spanning around 2 decades, how has your business journey been like?
It's been a very exciting, very fulfilling, and very gratifying journey. It's just that the journey is on. The question seems to suggest like it's coming to an end. I've been a marketer throughout my career, and there has never been a dull moment because you can be curious, you can be creative, and you get paid for it.
Absolutely. Before serving as a CMO for the 2 automotive giant, Tata Motors and Royal Enfield, you also worked with cosmetics and various other skin brands. Talk to us about how your experience with them has perhaps helped you or reshape your career path moving forward with the automotive giants.
Yes, I've been blessed to have had exposure across verticals and segments. Actually, I began my career in 1999 as a management trainee with Hindustan Lever Limited. And I continued with Unilever through till the end of 2010. And in that capacity, I was marketing head for Lakme. I was also marketing manager and head of category for household care, for deodorants and male grooming. And, you know, thereafter, I worked with leading multinationals such as Diageo. I was CMO for Visa for South Asia. And I also worked at Star. So I think in each role, what has worked for me and what it has taught me is that consumer reality is universal and it remains the same. Consumers have basic inspirations that guide them in their decisions. And as a marketer, you're obliged to understand the consumer journey and show them what you have on offer. And therefore, the principles of insight, building differentiated content, great customer experience, and having the humility to realize and recognize that customer is king, that I think has been taught to me in my various different roles across various industries.
You do speak of your phrase that customer is king. And before we move ahead, I have to ask you about the viral ad campaigns. I think you do have a hint as to what I'm talking about. The Mauka Mauka campaign and the Le Panga campaign. What was the thought behind these viral ad campaigns?
No, I see all campaigns that I have done or any great marketing campaign has 2 essential platform principles. One is that you have to have an insight that cuts through and you have to have craft and content that has impact. In the 2 that you mentioned, that was a very exciting period in Star's journey when we were just setting out with so many new leagues. There was an excitement, the number of channels had grown. And the 2015 World Cup was obviously a critical must-win in terms of the campaign and drawing audience interest. And this insight came from the team. There was a very, very bright set of workers in the cricket marketing team, including Prathamesh Sapte, Vikas Dubey, Rohit Khanna. They came up with this insight, which was outside of the formal campaign that we were doing, that as a matter of statistical truth, Pakistan had never beaten India in an ICC context. And this sheer joy of, you know, putting the other down even before the contest began. And it was done very playfully. The craft was really light touch. But I think it cut through to millions of adoring fans that it's a matter of great pride they haven't beaten us at an ICC fixture. And I think that became really viral in the true sense. Le Panga was very different. We were bringing an earthy sport. Kabaddi was being presented with rightful stature and razzmatazz. And it was custom built for television. You know, it's a great, fantastic sport, wonderful athletes. And we wanted to have a machismo which was fitting its stature. And that's why we said, you know, this is a panga sport. You go out and do your thing there on the mat. and we wanted to show just the fantastic feats of these athletes. And that's the spirit with which we built those campaigns. Later we did a spoof on other parts of television saying, Baki sab kuch fake, asli panga dekh. So we did various iterations on it, but I think it worked because in the very first season, Kabaddi became the #2 sport on television.
Yeah, I think the Lepanga campaign that you headed, it somehow did change the whole face of Kabaddi in India. Let's also talk about the new reality that you are facing in the marketing sector. Like you mentioned, you started career in 1999 with Hindustan Liver. How has marketing and the new strategies and the advent of digital era, how has that changed in 2024?
Wow. Well, that's a very broad question indeed. I think fundamentally what has happened, Rahesha, is that in the earlier era, when it was about the classical 360-degree campaign, it was a rate card era. You could go and buy audience interest from these few apertures that existed as large media companies. Then, in about 15 years ago, social networks migrated into becoming social media by themselves. And the proliferation of smartphones and phones per se. So the phone screen has become the principal entry point for the internet. And marketing shifted from being infrequent, big and broadcast to becoming frequent, small and social. I think that's been the mega change. And the other piece that has happened is our lives, all of our lives, as everyday consumers, we are living in a world that is mediated by algorithms, whether it's your day list on Spotify, whether it's your Facebook feed, whether it's the way in which your mail gets sorted on Gmail, or the way your phone throws up your photographs from last year and curates an experience for you. All of this is done algorithmically. That algorithm is driven by your interest as well as the interest of others who are like you. So that cohort definition actually helps marketers create personalization, but it's also giving us issues in terms of creative content that breaks the format. Because if you're on a platform, you have to subscribe to the platform format. So I think marketing has changed from being assured and infrequent and campaign-minded to being always on, peer-to-peer and social. And this is the new reality we live in. I think the onset of artificial intelligence in terms of artificial general intelligence will accelerate this way more than it has ever been in the past.
So do you think that this era that we are in of digital era, if we can call it that way, that it has been able to spawn some great brands in today's time, or was the era of marketing earlier better?
Well, I think consumers don't live in a vacuum. They're not going to wait to make decisions on which brands to choose based on the primary medium. But let me say it's a way more competitive world today because people have choice, and they jump between screens. And there are many lit screens in the world. In the last 10 years, the world's smartphone population has gone from 1 billion to 4 billion. And each one of those phones potentially has more computing power than, let's say, NASA had when it sent a man to the moon. So, this kind of capability to produce, to curate, to become influencers, to browse across different screens is not going to be marketing of the 60s and 70s, obviously. However, consumer motivations have not changed. They remain more or less the same. We still eat, we go to work, we still pray, we are hopeful, we are optimistic, we feel scared. So the essential consumer psyche has not changed, but the way in which they interact with the world has changed. And, I think the marketer can feel inspired by it, or they can feel threatened by it. I think if they take inspiration from this fact that it's a very volatile world, it will be good. Last year, Rahesha, for the first time, $1 trillion was the ad revenue worldwide, in which $700 billion was digital. And 2012 was the first time that consumption changed screens. It went from television to digital screens. So online consumption has become much greater.
Because everything is just a click away now.
That's right. And it's always on. It's always with you. It's intimacy as well as impact, both. It's always in your pocket.
I just want to take that point a little more further. What are the key components for a successful marketing strategy, or what would you like to maybe tell the young managers as to how they can take their companies forward? Because like you mentioned, the environment around us is rapidly changing by the minute.
So, brand essentially has a position or a persona or a personality, and that should be changing with the times, but there should be some things which are immutable, that don't never change.
Okay.
And at any point in time, a brand has two faces: who am I and why buy me, right?
Correct.
So when we do consumer speak, when we go out to consumers at large, we are trying to tell them more about who we are as a brand, but we are also trying to get them, any brand, to try us out. And in that, the core, the essence of the brand should remain great. In fact, many people make the mistake of trying new things when the times get tougher. My recommendation is that they should go back to what made them great in the first place. The core of the brand doesn't change. Let me give you an example. In the last, say, 40, 50 years, some 60 James Bond movies have been made, and some 7 to 8 actors have acted as James Bond. The first James Bond movie and the latest one are dramatically different. But James Bond, the essential characteristics of that great persona is the same. He's a risk taker, he's flamboyant, he's energetic. That has not changed. That is classical brand personality. And if you change with the times without losing your essential core, you have a good brand story.
I was just coming to that you're a strong believer of good old-fashioned marketing. But moving on, what are some key points that helps you stay ahead of the curve? You just mentioned that you need to be a risk taker. Are you a risk taker?
Yes, I believe I am. I've been blessed to have started life at Hindustan Lever, like I was saying, where the brand was the business, in the sense that the profit center was led by a marketing manager. So you were not some auxiliary troops for publicity's sakes. You were the ones who were leading the classical 4 Ps of marketing: product, place, price, and promotion. That has moved a great distance today to, the 4 Cs, as I call them. It's about comprehension, it's about being contagious, it's about being able to make a connection, and it's about continuity. You have to be continuously on. So, classical old marketing in essential principles remains the same, but the tools and the modalities have changed a great deal.
Can you highlight a particular campaign or a brand strategy that had a significant impact on you?
Well, when I joined Visa as marketing director, we did a campaign called Dare to Dream, or Dream to Advance. Basically, the idea was, at that time, largely cards were being used as debit cards in the country, and credit card population was small. And people used to go with their debit cards to the ATM machines, withdraw cash, and then spend in cash. So way ahead of its time, I'm talking about 2011, 12, 13, we were trying to get to people to use their debit cards online, much before the digital wallets or the India FinTech stack or UPI came about. And what that taught me is that people have a very real relationship in India with value. So it was not about how they transact or where they choose to spend money. The act of spending money is a statement that they make, and they always prioritize the right things, whether it's education for their kids, security for themselves, buying a house, buying essentials. And while I was looking at it as a campaign, it taught me a lot about the real India. India is not, not a comparable market to any. Marketing in the Western sense has been developed in advanced markets where very few people have a lot to spend. India is exactly the opposite. There are billions of people, millions of people, each with a small amount. So our beauty as a market lies in aggregation.
We have been talking about your career spanning 20 years, almost 2 decades, with a lot of brands all over the world. What strategies or approaches do you still use that helps you stay ahead and perhaps bring the relevance factor in your marketing industry?
The only way to do marketing that works is to think in consumer shoes. So you must be familiar with the consumer reality. You must force yourself to be in consumer shoes, meet them often, meet them where they actually live and work. Do not jargonize your understanding, state it plainly. So I'm a big believer in market research, but I'm an equally big believer in actually going out on my own and learning from others. So very often in large industries, we tend to start looking at the world inside out. We have to have the acumen to look at the world outside in. So what's a white good manufacturer doing? How are services playing out? What's media? I mean, your industry is a fabulous example of staying, staying relevant. The screens have changed. The beauty of content remains what it is. So, you know, whether you're seeing it on YouTube, whether you're seeing it on a phone screen, whether you're seeing it on linear TV,
Right.
or you were seeing it on the cinema screen, the content pieces have migrated from cinema to network television.
The essence
to,
remains the same.
but the essence remains the same. So
Correct.
people must know what are the essentials of their category, who are the core consumers, what do the consumers aspire for, and then innovate with recency. The more you do things which are familiar to people, the more they will understand you. So the role of a marketer, I've often said, is to make the new familiar and the familiar new.
I'm just intrigued to know what is the sentiment of the consumers today in this day and age.
I think India is a fantastic market. In every category, people are experimenting. They are blessing Indian brands. I have been blessed in my career to work with some very iconic Indian brands like Lakme, like Vim, like Fair and Lovely, like Royal Enfield, creating IPs like Kabaddi. And I know for real that Indians are now confident about brand India and Indian brands. And Tata is the most revered brand of them all, and also the most valuable, and also the most highly esteemed brand in India. So the thing is, Indian consumers are optimistic. It's an incredibly young country. 40 crore Indians are less than 20 years of age. So they have a great hope in their future. And I think India is growing. Every 10 years, we will double our GDP. That's a great prescription for a wonderful future for marketing as well as a function.
Absolutely. Keeping the business talks aside, let's get to know you a little more here on WION Business Masters. Who has been a role model throughout your career and a mode of inspiration for you?
Well, I'd say my father for sure. I mean, I'm saying as a person, I've learned a great deal from him. He was a civil servant. He retired as a secretary to the government of India. A very principled man, a person who was self-made in many ways. Great understanding of the realities of the world. Solid moral foundations. And I think he has passed that on to me. I think it has worked for me in my marketing career as well. Any great brand has to have honesty and integrity at the core. Anybody who's doing only style but no substance will fail eventually. Other than that, I've had some great bosses throughout my career in Hindustan Lever and elsewhere, and I've learned a lot from them. Whether it was people like Gopal Vittal at Hindustan Lever, Sanjay Gupta, who's now at Google, who was my boss at Star, Mr. Rajiv Kapoor at Visa, and several colleagues from the global system as well. When you meet people from other cultures, you learn new ways of working. So all of them have been inspirations for me in terms of diligence, attention to detail, and understanding the big picture.
In today's time, we see that the younger generation, they're in a hurry to just be on top of the game. What kind of advice would you like to give them?
You know, I don't believe that one is better or the other is worse. In fact, it's very often our norm, and I think as we age, we begin to compare the best of yesterday with the average or the worst of today. I think the kids today, my son is 16 years old, and I see his generation is way more aware about the larger world. They are far more tech adept. And I think, they have an inner drive and confidence that probably we didn't have, at least I didn't have in my generation. My advice to them would be to stay curious, to experiment. People are afraid of failure. You see, human mind, if you're successful, you don't want to experiment. And if you don't experiment, you don't succeed. So then, it's the more you fail, the more you succeed, but people are actually afraid of it. So confidently going in to try experiments that fail, but they fail to make you successful and to teach you things. And this is true in corporate life. We discuss only successes. We don't discuss failures enough. But if you inspect failures, you will learn more about what to do right than you will if you inspect only successes.
What is one piece of advice that you've received through your career and how it has shaped your life?
Again, going back to my foundational training, Hindustan Lever was very focused on the consumer realities. And so I think the discipline of going out to market, of meeting real consumers, of meeting retailers, just appreciating the dynamics of the business, and then how your function or how marketing contributes to it was a great learning for me. I think also, as you grow and as you begin to get perspective, you know, I think distance is important in life. As you advance through various stages and as you start dealing with more and more in terms of your everyday work, you begin to connect more dots in your head, right? So you've seen things before, you see how they shape out, and so it gives you a sense of calm. And panic never works. Being alarmist never works. You have to take a distant but calm and collected view of things. And if you do that, then, you know, eventually we are all professionals. We find our way.
We did speak about failures and successes. Just to follow up on that, looking back on your career, is there anything that you would have done differently or no? You know,
I got many opportunities to be abroad, but for a variety of reasons I chose to be in India. I mean, one is I love being in India, and I am a very desi person at heart. But I do think that either in pursuing a second degree abroad or in doing a short but meaningful stint earlier in my career, it would have helped to get you know, exposure to a global market or a foreign market living there. I, of course, had several opportunities to run businesses and brand mixes across the world, but I never worked in a culture for a long period of time which was away from mine, except America, where I stayed for 4 years.
Do you suggest the young entrepreneurs or the young marketers to perhaps go outside, gain experience and come back to India, or do you think that's a part of the brain drain concept?
No, I don't think it's brain drain to go and gain exposure and come back. Even as travelers, even to understand how this category works, say for example the world of magazines. The world of magazines, which had an assured audience, great advertiser population, it was a statement in terms of social elites. People built a worldview based on which magazines they subscribed to. Right. That world changed in India, but it has not changed as much in England or in America. Now, if you're in the magazine or publishing business, it's great to go and look at what's happening there that didn't happen here, or what's happening here that isn't happening there. So, you know, as the world becomes a smaller place, traveling abroad teaches you a lot about different consumer realities, different business dynamics, except probably in the wallet, because you end up spending some money. Yeah.
Okay, my last question to you, Mr. Singh. Any new skill set that you would like to advise the young marketers, the young entrepreneurs who aspire to be as successful as you?
Well, certainly I would say data, the understanding of data, the understanding of how data can be used to make your jobs and your lives better, and therefore analytics, and the emerging world of artificial intelligence. Artificial general intelligence has been the fastest adopted technology in the world. It launched in November 22 as a GPT, a general purpose technology, where, you know, and within 2 months it got 100 million users. Right now, people are very excited because of its ability to have a conversation, because of the skills that it has at language. But even if things stop today, it has already reached a level where it will transform the world that we live in. And I would recommend everybody to get on to an hour, hour and a half every day and work with AGI just to understand how it's dealing with something very different from software. It's a neural net. It has a capability like you would meet an alien who had sensibility or intelligence that is going to change everything we do, the way we work, the way we study, the way we travel, the way we diagnose diseases. Everything is set for, it's a generational change, but it is one of the few things, like let's say the steam engine or the internet or electricity, that runs across our civilization. So I would highly urge, and I'm learning myself, how do you learn? There is enough material, certification courses online which are available even for free. You should go to books. You should follow those who are acknowledged experts, but also look at diverse points of view. Don't get sucked into only one kind of thinking. But I think that is essential. If you're living in this world today, being numerate, having mathematical skills and having digital skills are the top 2 skills to possess.
Thank you, Mr. Singh, for joining us on WION Business Masters with your insights and sharing with us your experiences as well.
Thank you, Raesha. Congratulations on this new show. I am a big fan of WION, WION, and I think you're making great differentiated content.
Thank you.